TWA 517, do you want to report a UFO? Over.
Negative. We don't want to report.
Look, it wasn't my worst Wednesday night.
Hello. Welcome to another edition of Anomaly-NOW. I'm your host, Miles Lewis. This is the weekly news and media roundup for the 501c3 nonprofit community organization known as the Anomaly Archives, aka the Scientific Anomaly Institute, located here in Austin, Texas. Thank you for joining us, whether you are watching this live or on the restream or the audio-only version, listening on a podcast, or however you are receiving us. Thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate it. You can go to our website, anomalyarchives.org, and you can find out more about us there. There is a ton of information there about all things anomalous, largely UFO focused, but also stuff on parapsychology, the paranormal, consciousness, the nature of it, anomalous and mundane, dreams, all things anomalous from Atlantis, ancient civilizations and cultures. We have thousands of books on these subjects, thousands of paper files, thousands of periodicals. We are mostly virtual at this time, but we could use your support. You can go to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/anomalyarchives. And you can find out more about us there. You can join for free, but we have tiers where you can sign up for at $1 a month, $2 a month, $5, $10, $20, that sort of thing. We have monthly lectures online with various anomalous seekers and researchers, such as coming up next week, Expanding Frontiers Research's main co-founders Erica Lukes and Jack Brewer will be presenting on the Cold War and UFOs, and we are slowly making some of our older presentations available, like Joshua Cutchin's lecture from last year on Soulcraft, understanding the UFO as a death symbol. Fascinating material there. But like I say, you can go to anomalyarchives.org and find out all about us. The show notes for this episode will be there. And you can also go to our Flipboard. That's flipboard.com/@anomaly archives and click through to the link, and you'll find thousands and thousands of articles going back years and years and years. Of course, those articles are, the links are archived at anomalyarchives.org as well. Well, let's dive right in. We're going to start off with some events. Of course, this is not going out live tonight because I will be at the Austin meetup for Area 512. That is the new Austin disclosure meetup by my good friend David, and we'll be having some alien beers and cheers, talking about the latest UFO news, especially whistleblower Dylan Borland's testimony and recent interview footage on Weaponized, hosted by Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. And you can find links to all that in the show notes to this episode and on the website. So some of the upcoming events besides our own, very excited that, of course, David Marler of Triangular UFO fame, his organization, the NUFO-HRC, National UFO Historical Records Center in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. That's basically Albuquerque suburb. They are having their first community open house. David Marler posted a few days ago, "We are very excited to have our 1-year anniversary and community open house event this Saturday, October 18th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Our facilities will be open to the public the day before on Friday, 10/17. We will have TJ Trout from KKOB radio broadcasting his show live from the archives from 3 to 6 p.m. to promote the event. You can listen to it live here at newsradiokkob.com. And they've got this nice little flyer here with their logo and the Rio Rancho Public Schools logo. National UFO Historical Records Center, Community Open House. That's right, man. I know I said in a previous broadcast I was going to be there. I just can't do it. There's just too much going on for me in my personal life right now, unfortunately. But I'm so excited for them. We're going to have some other interesting information about David Marler and New Fork, the other New Fork in UFO HRC later on in the program. Also coming up, this event over in, what is this? It's got to be Kentucky, right? Here we have the Goblin Con, UFO and Paranormal Expo. Oh, yes, in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. That's, of course, where the famous Kelly Hopkinsville Goblin event happened. This is coming up October 17th and 18th. So it's the same weekend, competing UFO events, but obviously of a very different nature. But boy, I got to get to go to some of these local events like this. This just seems so cool. Really excited for the folks putting this on. I hope it goes well. Looks like they've got a variety of presenters, including former Texan Ken Gerhard, good friend and cryptozoologist, as well as Tim Swartz and Tyler Strand and a bunch of others. Oh, Tom Reed, he's got an amazing story to tell. If you haven't heard Tom Reed's story, you should definitely check that out. And many others presenting there at Goblin Con. Check that out. That's over at goblinconky.com/home. Also, we've got news of a cryptozoology-oriented conference in Maine. TheSunJournal.com is reporting Maine's Bigfoot Festival comes October 18th and 19th to Eustis. Expert speakers, Bigfoot calling contest, and a quick draw camera game highlight the 2-day event. Yes, you got to get fast with your cell phone camera if you don't have a real camera, because boy, so much anomalous stuff happens and people never get pictures. We want the pictures. But this is being reported by the Rangeley Highlander over at sunjournal.com. And I'm sure there's a link to an official website somewhere. Oh, and it's International Cryptozoology Museum in Portland, features several footprints. So I believe Lauren Coleman's going to be there. So check that out. And coming up then later in the month, the 2025 Soul Foundation Symposium is happening. That's, if I'm remembering correctly, happening in Italy. Yes, October 24th through 27th on the shores of Lake Maggiore, Maggiore, in northern Italy. That's going to be pretty cool. And what's on the agenda here? A wide variety of people, I imagined. Oh, yes, Dr. Beatriz Villarreal, Colonel Carl Nell, let's see, General Pierre Vesconde, and lots of Q&A and panel discussions. Dr. Peter Skafish of the Soul Foundation, of course, that's who's organizing this. Dr. Diana Pasolka, and many other doctors. Carl Seville. Oh, Jacques Vallée is going to be there, as well as Gary Nolan and Jake Barber. Wow. Interesting. Okay. Taking some time off from the West Texas Sky. What are they called? I can't even remember now. But Skywatcher Ranch. I was going to say Skywalker, but that's something else. And a whole bunch of other people for the Soul Foundation event. And then lastly, we've got this news of Mysteries of Space and Sky 2025. This is happening Saturday, November 1st. This is a major UFO related event in the Washington-Baltimore area and one of the longest running conferences in the U.S. Don't really know who's speaking at this. It's all buried here down in the fine print. Oh, I hadn't seen this. It says, unfortunately, Maryland resident and famed ufologist Ray Stanford recently passed away. I guess he was originally supposed to be on the presentation list. Which reminds me, oh gosh. Yeah, that reminds me. I'll remind you, for Ray and all of us, Chris Lambright, good friend and fellow UFO researcher, has a fundraiser where he is trying to raise funds to help him in his efforts, working with Ray Stanford's widow to digitize Ray Stanford's legendary, there I go again, his infamous UFO photographs, slides, and especially the film footage that he took of UFOs over decades. And Christian could really use your help. Highly recommend this effort, and am looking forward to the revelations that will be coming out very soon about what is there in those archives and that material. And we're going to have more to say about archives coming up in just a bit. But let's see. I want to Again, you can go to our Flipboard and find out more about the links that we're talking about tonight, today, day, night, wherever you are, whenever you are. And let's get to these first news stories. All right. So, yeah. Like I say, we never get to all the information. There's just too much happening. And there's stuff I miss and stuff I find out about later. Oh, well. I want to congratulate Ryan Sprague on his recent Anomicon, and as well as these ongoing interviews that he's doing. He recently did this interview with David Marler of the NUFO HRC, and it's titled David Marler's Mission to Save UFO History, and it's a very interesting interview, no doubt. I have not had the chance to make my way through it. However, I do have some clips. I hope I uploaded these that are worth checking out. Let's see where those are. There's some interesting things that they've already found in these archives that are coming together there in New Mexico with Marler and Jan Aldrich's help and others. So there's an interview that's been unearthed featuring Lee Spiegel, who has passed, and his archives have gone to in UFO HRC. Apparently back in the 80s, or maybe this is 90s, I forget. He did this interview with the original Jesse Marcel Sr. And in this interview are several revelations that may or may not have actually ever been publicized. And this interview apparently has never been released, and they've digitized it. And here's just a couple of minutes from that.
One little incident that I'd never revealed to anyone. One night, since I had charge of security on the airbase, the provost marshal, who was working under me, he called me at my house. He told me to hurry up and go to the base immediately. So I got in my car and I floorboarded it 4 miles away to the base. And while going out there as fast as my car could run, I saw some lights in the sky, but it was defined formation. It is a perfect V formation. And it was visible for about maybe two or 3 seconds from overhead to be on the horizon. So I never questioned what that was. It's just maybe a shooting star or something like that, but I've never seen meteorites in formation. And in fact, when I got to the base, I told Major Easley, who was the provost marshal, that I'd seen that. He says, yeah, some of the boys over here saw that too. And at the rate it's traveling, it is traveling thousands and thousands of miles per hour. I knew we had no aircraft capable of making that speed. So we let the whole thing go. But they were lights. Now what it was, I still don't know.
How many lights were there?
There was a formation of 5.
In a V shape?
In a V shape.
And
I saw it just so momentarily. I could see the numbers. That's all.
What was the time frame in perspective to the Roswell incident?
Oh, that was about perhaps a month or so before.
Before Roswell?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Had you heard of other UFO sightings in that area of New Mexico?
No, I didn't keep up with that.
Yeah.
See, those are not my duties.
So yeah, that was a recording by Lee Spiegel of Jesse Marcel Sr., primary original Roswell witness that apparently has never been released, and it was just digitized by David Marler and company at the National UFO Historical Records Center and UFO HRC in New Mexico. And it's so great that this kind of thing is happening. This is all what it's all about, folks, is the preservation of these materials and the making them accessible to a wider audience. And there may be very good reasons why this interview never was made public. Maybe Lee Spiegel worked some quotes from this into his articles about Roswell. It's hard to say. I'm not a Lee Spiegel expert, but wow. Okay. And this one's called 50-Year-Old Never Before Heard Interview. Roswell Will Never Be the Same. So there you heard Jesse Marcel Sr. talking about having been part of a multi-witness and an instrumented radar sighting of multiple UFOs in a V formation a month before Roswell. It'd be great if there could be some corroborating evidence and provenance for that information, if they can triangulate that and firm up that sighting, especially if it was never known before. Some might think that this makes his testimony less credible, because sometimes people think people who have multiple UFO sightings are less credible, but this is very interesting. And another thing he talks about is the fact that there was no crater, no indentation in the ground at the main crash site. And that reminds me, something we haven't reported on, I don't have prepared for today, but fairly recently, in the last month or two, the National Archives, in its executing of the requirement to release all this UFO information, put together a video montage of their videoing of photographic and other evidence related to the government's investigation of Roswell, mostly from the 1990s. And amongst the many reels of footage that show like weather balloons and so forth being launched are what appear to be aerial photographs of a crash site. And in some even close-up pictures, all kinds of speculation has happened, as one would imagine, about those, but nothing is certain yet. But another clip that we have where a previously unreleased and recently digitized audio of radar operators in a 1967 Vandenberg UFO incident. And here is about 2 minutes from that.
And he kind of looked like scared. And he said October 4th, 1967. And I looked at him and I said, 20 minutes ago, I just finished a reel-to-reel that I digitized. It was original recordings of radar operators at Vandenberg Air Force Base, October 4th, 1967. We had the reel-to-reel of the radar operators communicating with each other by telephone, and he found the original log sheets.
System 1 has a target at 195.5 degrees, 18K, about 5.8 degrees we got to them. Range is about 9 miles. Just lost one of them. We only have one at this time. Best disappearing act I ever saw. How many targets do you show?
I just had one before. I just seen another one pop in out in range about 1.5 miles, about 5.5 miles. It disappeared though.
TNT, how many targets do you show? No, I hold 2 targets at this time. 4 TNT, how many targets do you show?
We show 3 targets.
Now holds 3 targets.
It's azimuth now, but I have seen 287.
TNT, can I have your range and L, please? At the present time, holds 4 to 5 targets. We've got 3 of them right now at 240 degrees. Mark this one. TNC, one, track this, plot this thing. This is moving like son of a gun. We just split twice. We just split again. This thing is really moving in azimuth. One TNC, would you look at 246 degrees azimuth, about 7 miles? That target we 3 targets. Roger, that target we were tracking just before just kept on splitting. It split about 4 or 5 times. And it was really moving in azimuth.
Right. So, you can find all these over at Somewhere in the Sky's YouTube channel. That's Ryan Sprague's YouTube channel, and in the audio versions of his podcast, no doubt. All right. So great stuff. Again, way to go, David Marler and company. Doing great work. Really appreciate all they're doing. Moving right along. I've often promoted Tanner Boyle's Getting Spooked blog. That's over at tannerfboyle.substack.com. And every once in a while, he puts out a manifesto. He's put out his third one, The Interminable Utility of the UFO to the Western Defense Blob, or 7 examples of how the MID benefits from playing the same old UFO tune. Now, I would say I'm probably much more of a believer in the reality of a true UFO phenomena that I think may very well be of non-human origin, but I entertain a lot of different hypotheses and all at the same time. But I do think it's really important to consider the parapolitical implications of the government and military industrial complex and intelligence agencies and corporations and UFO and religions in general, and just basically humans' ability to manipulate other humans through their beliefs, especially when it comes to UFOs, aliens, and associated phenomena. I'll just briefly read part of this preamble here where he says, very, very little changes in ufology, sometimes making it a comfortable topic. At other times, it's less pleasant. Like an old friend, it stays largely the same throughout your entire life, repeating the same stories and becoming uncomfortably fixated on specific topics or ventures that have run their course. Quote, "We'll get them next time," you say when disclosure gets delayed yet again, as if your old friend is having deathbed hallucinations. They murmur the same thing like a verbal tick. You've read the literature, you know it's a bad sign. You try to hide your concern, but you're worried about them. You grew up together, and they were foundational to your development as a human being. But something's changed. The tenor of the conversations has shifted. Even nearly imperceptible elements in the aura around them have become somehow perverse or overwrought. Try as you might, you can't get around the devolution of your relationship, the sense that you are no longer speaking quite the same language. We've had no fewer than 4,000, rough estimate, whistleblowers since the last diatribe. In a continuing trend, nearly all of them are current or former military or intelligence personnel. They are considered the creme de la creme of UFO eyewitnesses, though there are obviously issues with this, as well as countless conflicts of interest. And while this conga line has resulted in the UFO reality being more generally accepted, even by Congress and the president, casual observers might be shocked at the regularity of the coverage, more seasoned enthusiasts at how little these purported revelations have changed everyday life. I believe this is a result of the cold, calculated attempt to slide the subject into the mainstream. Gone are the days of wacky humanoid encounters and dorky hobbyist investigators. We've entered the realm of technological and militaristic nightmares. AI entities verging on godhood, future humans retrocausally or extra-dimensionally asserting their dominance, calls for immense outer space surveillance systems to track science-fictional threats, and continually stoked fears of foreign adversaries gaining access to tech beyond America's wildest dreams. Various undercurrents have become a raging river, dwarfing all previous tributaries. In the process, many integral steps to solving the UFO mystery are skipped, namely the fun ones. And each of these points he has footnoted, and as always, I love Tanner's footnotes. His sources are a rich resource to mine. So I'll skip over the rest of the preamble and just kind of some of the bullet points here. Number 1, Messengers of Distraction, a play on Messengers of Deception by Jacques Vallée, where he starts, UFOs have also become one of many go-to distractions for Washington, especially in the age of perpetual redirections from the Epstein debacle or general political unfavorability. UFOs, like the JFK or MLK assassination records, are trotted out at seemingly opportune moments. Constituents are increasingly underserved by their elected leaders, but those on the UFO caucus get easy brownie points from researchers and enthusiasts who would otherwise not align with them politically or are generally politically inactive. He goes on and gives more examples of all of this. And then he does a great thing of giving links to other articles he's written that go into that little chunk of perspective and topic area, including his previous State of the UFO Union. 2, spiritual warfare. In recent years, the topic has also proven to be a big draw for evangelicals or other Christian denominations. This tendency was seen most prominently in my series on the life and experiences of Chris Bledsoe, a modern UFO contactee who arrived on the scene dual-wielding a unique Christian mysticism and military intelligence supporters. While he has a more positive view on the phenomena, the lady is far more angelic than demonic in his view. He is one of the most prominent experiencers to give credence to the idea that what we think of as UFOs are the spiritual beings of Christian cosmology. Anyway, again, there's much more text and paragraphs and insight. I really like Tanner's writing. I think he's a good writer, and I think he's also a good researcher, and I think he's doing a really good job on all this. He gives more links to stuff dealing with that, like his previous article, Holding Out for a UFO Hero, No Matter the Cost. And then moving on to number 3, military and IC reverence, and IC being intelligence community. This again is just how people seem to just like really think of military and intelligence witnesses as being the creme de la creme over just the average Joe who has these experiences. Number 4, crafting and monitoring subversive groups, another useful use for the intelligence communities and government in terms of what's going on with UFO believers. Point 5, a robust intelligence multi-tool. Yes, indeed. He says, because ufology is a prominent subculture with subversive groups folded into it, the community continually presents a unique intelligence opportunity where one can spread disinfo, track leaks, and gain intel on what's in the skies from the people who obsessively watch it. Seen most prominently in the Air Force Office of Special Investigation, targeting UFO researcher Paul Benowitz with complex psychological operations, it is nevertheless unlikely that the whole debacle was simply intending to get him off the trail of advanced aircraft. Researcher Martin Cannon again has done deeper digging, which shows hints of a more complex intelligence network at play. In the years since, despite hoaxes, misdirection, disinformation, lies, and abuse, the UFO community's attitude towards government representatives and intelligence figures was not altered. If anything, the binding became tighter. And yet again, there's more there for you to read. Number 6, secret tests of earthly devices. Yes. That old harangue, which is certainly true. 7, Warhawk dreams. Because it rarely leaves the purview of national security wonks these days, ufology also presents a not-so-subtle way to ramp up Cold War paranoia. This fact was recognized as far back as the 1953 Robertson panel, which found that UFO reports and the subsequent hysteria were more of a danger to national security than the mysterious objects themselves. While some factions likely sought to avoid this panic, the decades that followed 1953 saw the military-industrial complex receive direct capital gains from a state of perpetual war, something that has only intensified into the present. Yep. Again, much more text for you to read there. I highly recommend it. Anyway, he's got a conclusion and all those other links there. I know that's just a tip of the iceberg, just a tantalizing taste for those who might find that interesting. I know this parapolitical angle is not everybody's area of interest. We'd rather just believe, wouldn't we? Meanwhile, over at coasttocoastam.com, Tim Banal brought my attention to this local news report from Fox 31. Video rep Lauren Boebert's re-election campaign advocates for answers about aliens. I'm going to let this 2-minute news clip speak for itself.
One is your local election headquarters. Colorado Congresswoman Lauren Boebert is running for re-election, and her latest campaign strategy is taking on a taboo topic. Fox 31's Ashley Michaels explains.
Yesterday, Lauren Boebert's campaign team sent out an email asking, are aliens real? So we went in search of answers of our own.
This is the Flying Saucer RV Resort.
And while it's not in Representative Lauren Boebert's district, some living in this Sheridan community also want to know what's up.
I think that aliens in general are absolutely real because there's got to be something out there.
Boebert's campaign team is now tapping into that curiosity with an email blast demanding the truth. It says for decades, our government has shrouded the truth about UFOs in a veil of secrecy. She goes on to question whether there are aliens, foreign adversaries, or secret government programs.
She put this out?
Fox 31 Democratic analyst Andy Boyan says outlandish ads are often used when candidates are desperate for money or voter support.
Neither of which I'm seeing right now. So I'm not really sure why this would go out to conservatives in her district. This is almost a cry for help in politics, to be honest.
But Boebert's campaign team says the message is performing extremely well because people want answers.
Enough is enough. Yeah, I agree. I think that just reading that, I can tell that she has a personality also, and she has an open mind and isn't afraid of reaching for new truths because there's not a whole lot of truth going on in the world right now.
And while our analyst says Boebert's email will get people talking, he believes it's the wrong topic at the wrong time.
The government is shut down, and there's no opportunity right now to talk. So what she needs to be doing is facilitating ways to get the government open again, not worrying about whether or not we have UFOs in our skies.
This is a topic she's discussed publicly before. Last year in November, there was a congressional hearing about UFOs where she questioned experts on the topic. She says she still has questions and won't stop until she gets answers. Ashley Michaels, Fox 31.
Well, yeah. And I'm kind of curious about that. What's the impetus for that news report? I am not playing this for any political reasons. I just found it interesting that this local Fox News station was kind of using, again, I think the veil of ridicule to ridicule this politician over this advocacy for transparency in government as it relates to UFOs. But think back to what we were just talking about with getting spooked. Tanner Boyle's comments about how this topic can be used to manipulate the public and constituents of politicians. Yeah, interesting. And yeah, it definitely that definitely seems weirdly politically leaning in a certain direction, which is funny considering how many people consider Fox News to be leaning in the opposite direction. Well, there you go. Thank you, Tim, for bringing that to my attention. All right, where is the next one? Oh, so you know, on the subject of the mystery drones over in Europe and Denmark, there is this. This is a Google translation of this Danish article, I believe. Mysterious drones over Denmark. Investigation has debunked several drone sightings. Now, this is apparently after the authorities brought in better radar to determine drone activity. And it's interesting that this article and the next one I'm going to show you are saying that, and this is not to dismiss the fact that there apparently are probably military drones happening. We know that has been confirmed in some other instances. But here we have this website, dr.dk, with the headline translated into English: Mysterious drones over Denmark. Investigation has debunked several drone sightings. According to DR's information, there is still no concrete evidence of illegal drones over Denmark. However, sightings have already been denied. And this was brought to my attention by Micah Hanks over at The Debrief. This article starts by saying Denmark has received help from Ukrainian drone specialists. We have borrowed anti-drone equipment from Sweden and the USA, and we have set up temporary radars that can detect and jam drones because, according to the authorities, we have experienced hybrid attacks with drones in the air. The police are still investigating the cases of possible violations of Danish airspace and disruption of critical societal functions, but the question of the extent to which there were drones in Denmark remains unanswered. According to DR's information, however, the authorities' investigation has debunked some of the drone observations, not all, some, which they initially saw as illegal drone activity, both over airports and several military installations. DR has asked both the Copenhagen police and PET about the status of the investigation a week and a half after the government called the drone incident in Denmark, quote-unquote, hybrid attacks. The authorities did not want to give that. And then this other article, similar, over at Drone XI. I think it's, or is that Drone XL? DroneXL.co. Denmark quietly debunks drone sightings after massive response, but won't admit it publicly. Danish authorities have quietly confirmed that several high-profile drone sightings that triggered a massive international response last month were actually conventional aircraft, but they're refusing to share these findings publicly, according to DRDK. So this article is citing the other one that we just read from. Denmark's national broadcaster is dr.dk. The revelation comes after Denmark deployed Ukrainian drone specialists, borrowed anti-drone equipment from Sweden and the United States. Yeah, this is pretty much a recapitulation of the same information, but it's interesting. And I mean, maybe there's nothing really significant here. And it's just like our drone flap here in the United States. I mean, that is clearly a regular aircraft. And this photo that they're showing in this article, hard to say. Continuing on the drone subject, is this article from the debrief.org. Officials say aircraft material of unknown origin was found at recent site of mysterious crash near Area 51. Now, there's this local fella who is a Area 51 watcher and who's gotten in trouble with the FBI and authorities multiple times because of his surveillance of this area. And he's recently been documenting the retrieval operations of this recent crash, which is presumed to be of a UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle. And he's even posted a video that I just watched a few minutes ago where he did go back to the crash site after it had been abandoned and made open to the public after it had been scoured of any material. But there's some very strange aspects to this. Let's see. On September 23rd, a non-fatal crash involving an aircraft was reported northeast of Las Vegas near the famous high-security facility, prompting the Federal Aviation Administration to issue a temporary flight restriction covering a 5 nautical mile area east of the secretive base. The TFR advised that the restriction was in place for reasons involving, quote, national security. And the site of the crash was subsequently cleared by U.S. Air Force officials. Quote, there were no fatalities, injuries, or property damage, read a statement provided by 432nd Air Expeditionary Wing Public Affairs in response to inquiries made by the debrief. Quote, the incident is under investigation. The statement read, adding that no additional details were available about the situation at the time. That all changed last weekend when the 432nd Wing issued a new release providing the first official update on the situation in several days, which included a series of puzzling new developments. Quote, during a follow-on site journey on October 3rd, investigators discovered signs of tampering at the mishap location. The October 4th release stated, quote, including the presence of an inert training bomb body and an aircraft panel of unknown origin that were placed on the site post-incident. Okay. This sounds like they're saying somebody staged crash material at the site after they cleared it. Maybe somebody was making a movie and like, hey, let's use this real crash site. I don't know. That's just very strange. The debrief reached out to 432nd Air Expeditionary Wing Public Affairs again on October 10th, seeking any additional details that could be provided about the situation, but had received no response to the query as of the time of publication. The aircraft involved in the initial September 23rd incident has not been officially identified, although it is believed to have been an unmanned aerial vehicle UAV, according to Dreamland Resort, that is the individual I was alluding to, a website that has chronicled news and discussions related to Area 51 and U.S. government black projects for decades. Jorg Arnu, that's Joergarnu, the site's founder and webmaster, traveled to the area where the crash occurred shortly after officials had cleared the site, documenting his visit in a video that appeared on his YouTube page on September 29th. In an article about the incident posted on his website on October 10th, Arnu wrote that while the official statements provided by the U.S. Air Force attribute the aircraft crash to a unit operating from Creech Air Force Base, security radio communications reportedly overheard shortly after the incident may have potentially linked it to a hangar at Area 51. Arnu said that based on his investigations, the incident was likely related to a large nighttime military operation occurring in the region in the early morning hours on September 23rd, as indicated in radio communications occurring at that time. In its statement issued over the weekend, the affairs people said that the investigation into the origin of the aircraft panel of unknown origin and training bomb subsequently discovered at the site remains underway. That is very bizarre. I wonder if we'll ever hear anything more about that. All right, moving on to the blog by Keith Basterfield and Pauline Wilson, Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Scientific Research. This one, more documents leak from the Bass OSAP Capella data warehouse. Oh, this is... So, again, Bass is the Bigelow Advanced Aerospace company that got the contract that created OSAP and ATIP that has been what was revealed in 2017 onward and which we've been trying over the years to get more and more information about. And Capella was the multi-database mega database created by Jacques Vallée as part of this project. What was Capella? The Capella Data Warehouse was a collection of a number of internationally sourced databases compiled by Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, BASS, the contractor for the Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Applications Program, OSAP, in the time frame 2008 to 2010. The concept was created by Jacques Vallée and managed by BASS by Douglas Kurth of USS Nimitz fame. That's a whole other line of inquiry that a lot of people have looked into. But hasn't gotten that much publicity, which is this weird connection to this project by somebody that was on the Nimitz, I think, during some of the famous cases that are the hallmark of this post-2017 era, that being Douglas Kurth. Anyway, continuing, when OSAP ceased in 2010, the Capella Data Warehouse was one of the program's products, which were forwarded to the program sponsor, the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. It was thought to have been lost until evidence came forward that the Capella Data Warehouse had reemerged. Lines of evidence. Two of the lines of evidence for this assertion are: one, in the 2021 book Skinwalkers at the Pentagon by James Lukatsky, page 169 reads, the authors are aware that the OSAP BASS data warehouse, rather than lying fallow in a dusty warehouse or on a discarded hard drive, has been recently reactivated and is currently in use in various locations related to the government study of UAPs. Two, in the 2025 book Forbidden Science, Volume 6 by Jacques Vallée, page 481, diary entry dated January 31st, 2019, quote, in the meantime, an NRO senior officer who resigned from Trump's staff last year as director of cryptography strategic planning has joined the TTSA board last week. I'm told that he may have kept a copy of Capella. I would think that would be illegal. I don't know. Vallée doesn't name this individual. However, two individuals joined the advisory board of the To the Stars Academy in 2019, namely J. Christopher Miser, who has financial background, and Joe Shermer, who has AI background. In a blog dated July 15th, 2019, I noted that there was another individual who was listed in the July 2019 TTSA quote-unquote offering circle as a member of their advisory board. Yada, yada, yada. It's this, he mentions Chris Herndon. Jumping ahead to Phenomenon. And I remember when this site came online, I was probably from this Keith Basterfield post that made me go, what's going on here? So on May 7th, 2022, a new website was launched called Phenomenon. Instead of Phenomenon, it's Phenom AI Non, N-O-N. In a blog dated 8 May 2022, I noted that on that website were a number of database spreadsheets which were remarkably similar to those listed for Capella. The creator and owner of the Phenomenon website, AI website, is Joe Sherman. A January 31st, 2023 article titled Houston Innovator Aims to Connect the Dots Between Data Science and Phenomena appeared, written by Mike DeMonte. Hey, punk rock Mike. The article reported that Sherman had been working since 2019 on this topic. In part, it read, quote, Sherman has worked with the U.S. government's Task Force for Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, the UAPTF. The article went on to say, quote, while it soft launched in May of 2022, Sherman says they have several data sets that are waiting clearance from the U.S. government. Anyway, there's more over at ufos-scientificresearch.blogspot.com. And of course, the links will be in this show's show notes on anomalyarchives.org. Also in UFO news, Christopher Mellon just had this article published in the San Francisco Chronicle, October 11th, and reposted on his own Substack at christopherkmellon.substack.com, titled, The U.S. government is sitting on a trove of UFO records. It should release them. Well, no, bull. Indeed, that is the whole point of it all. Yes, I know. Let's see. He says, at a recent congressional hearing, the public fixated on a leaked video appearing to show a U.S. missile striking an unidentified object off Yemen in 2024. Whatever the object was, one pressing question is why it took a leak rather than government disclosure for the public to see it. Well, because it may not be a UFO. I spent more than 30 years inside the U.S. intelligence community, including serving as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence and later as a consultant to the military. During those years, I witnessed a troubling pattern. Incidents of unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAP, formerly known as UFOs, yada, yada, were detected by cutting-edge radar and other systems, but routinely dismissed, buried, or classified beyond justification. In 2017, I helped bring footage of three, it's the history there. But, yeah, so sorry, Mr. Mellon, I know you seem to be trying to do the right thing, but basically he's yet again doing his op-ed where he's rightly rattling his saber and the cages. So you can read the rest of that over at his blog. Shifting gears a little, over at John Greenwald Jr.'s theblackvault.com is this article. Unheard FBI audio reveals that Art Bell discussing threats, rumors, and radio rivalries. This could be fun. If you're an Art Bell fan, you may want to check that out. A bit says, in one report, agents wrote that Bell, quote, was interviewed at his request concerning threats against his life. He told investigators that he was host of a syndicated talk show that airs to approximately 420 stations and that the program deals with facts and speculation concerning the paranormal, extraterrestrials, unidentified flying objects, and advanced technology aircraft of the United States. Yeah, I mean, that was part of the history of his going on and off the air, was his fear for his life and his family's life. May have had nothing to do with the information he was trafficking in, though. Oh, and meanwhile, over at Life in Jonestown, good old Billy Cox is as crotchety as ever, titled, Put Wilson Davis Under Oath. Get the memo off the table already or exhaust its every lead. And I kind of feel what he's saying, but he's basically just pointing out that, we've heard endlessly for years. It was more of a rumor for years. And then it was leaked, I believe, in 2017. And this idea that Eric Davis, the supposed advanced frontier physicist that's worked with Hal Puthoff and others, and has insights into these supposed legacy crash retrieval programs, that he ended up meeting this Admiral Wilson who told him the story of his having tried to gain access to one of these special access programs that's a reverse engineering program, and he was rebuffed and he was very angered by it. But then ever since, it seems like he's dropped it and disavowed having any connection to it. And if you believe this, it seems likely that his livelihood, his ability to advance in the military, and likely his pension were threatened, and that he got the memo, not the Wilson Davis memo, but he got the message, the memo. Don't pursue this or it'll be the end of your career. But he has come out swinging a couple of times and said, yeah, get me under oath. I have nothing to say because I don't know anything. I don't know this Eric Davis, haven't never met him. And he completely denies it. So as Billy Cox is saying, one of these people is lying. Or are they both lying? I don't know, but it's interesting. He's pointing out that Eric Davis seems to have shifted away from trying to get Wilson to testify. In this article, he says, to wit, when I heard Eric Davis teeing off on the CIA's former director of science and technology last month, I felt like a crazed cheerleader at the Coliseum, raring to fling a bucket of... Yeah. Davis served up some thrilling religious iconography after a podcaster asked who he'd like to interrogate. Oh, I don't want to read this. Sorry, folks. He basically talks about crucifying this guy, Glenn Gaffney, who has been in the intelligence community for 31 years. And Billy Cox says, since 2024, Gaffney is rumored to have been the agency spook who, years ago, allegedly blocked the transfer of alien technology from Lockheed Martin to a DoD research team known as OSAP. As the still unverified storyline goes, the CIA, which doled out UFO debris to the private sector in the middle of the 20th century, still retains proprietary control over the material, and it's acting like anyone else who wants access will have to pry it from their cold, dead fingers. A couple of nutcases, quote unquote, but that was only a portion of the rant Davis dumped on podcaster Dave Zed in September. Physicist and DoD consultant, quantum world sleuth, Davis's corner on the high strangeness market goes back to Robert Bigelow's Skinwalker Ranch in the 90s. And while he's no stranger to weird stuff, e.g., Davis claims to have watched a hairy crypto creature shake off a couple of point-blank rifle rounds before disappearing into the Utah outback, some versions of it he refuses to abide. For instance, all right. Anyway, you should check out the article if you can stand Billy Cox's writing style. I find it likable. So let's talk about some free items available over at explorescu.org. Is this new edition of their SCU Review 6.4, News from the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. What's inside this issue? Their columns, What's Going On in SCU, Fireside Chat with Morgan Beale by Robert Powell, Academia, Interview with Dr. Michael Bolander by Armin Schrick, History, the Selfridge Air Force Base Radar UFO Encounter of March 1950. There's some opinion columns, including a commentary on Arrow by Robert Powell, and Quo Vadis by Tom Tullian, and a Potpourri by Robert Powell again, and some other materials. Anyway, this is a downloadable PDF. You can read it right there on the webpage. It's got the PDF embedded, or you can download it and read it on your own device. Also, this came out last month over at mindfieldbulletin.org. That's the Mindfield issue 17.2, Neurodivergence and Communication. And this is got a lot of great parapsychological oriented research material that's all there for free and for download. Check it out. Okay, we're going to take a brief break and we'll be right back. All right, folks. So where do we leave off? Yeah, that's it pretty much for the UFO news. Lots of other headlines that will be posted with this episode's show notes on the anomalyarchives.org website. Tons of other stuff. I did want to just bring your attention to some other things. I'm not going to get into the depth of all of this, but my good friend Chester Moore Jr., he is a outdoorsman, outdoors writer, and also a cryptozoologist who used to host Southern Bigfoot Conference here in Texas. And he's got a podcast called The Dark Outdoors, but he also has a podcast that I believe is called the Resurrection Worldview Podcast, which is of a religious bent. He is a very spiritual and religious person. And I find it interesting, though, that he has this 2-part podcast episode called Surviving the Satanic Panic. And I haven't had the chance to listen to this yet. The episode, I'm not sure, I think it's about 20 minutes long. But the first episode, as he says here, in this unflinching and deeply personal series, I pull back the curtain on my experience of public vilification and social alienation. For nothing more than being a long-haired male who loved heavy metal and horror movies, I found myself branded with labels I never imagined: devil worshiper, cult leader, dangerous influence, and drug dealer. And this was 8 years old on. I take readers inside the emotional, psychological fallout of being misunderstood and demonized for my passions. Anyway, Chester, somebody I really appreciate for the activities he participates in. And while we probably don't see eye to eye on everything, I'm very much looking forward to hearing his talk about how he was branded in that way during the infamous, satanic panic of the 80s and 90s as he was growing up. But that might interest some of our listeners. Meanwhile, I just during the break found out about another free event happening. This is over at noetic.org, Psychic Abilities, A History of Fascination and Fear, coming up October 24th. And this is brought to you by IONS, the Institute of Noetic Science, their Connections Live event. Join us for a Connections Live webinar on the curious tension surrounding psychic phenomena such as telepathy, precognition, and mind-matter interactions. While many people find these possibilities intriguing as a way of exploring human potential, history also shows that they have often been met with skepticism and even fear. In this program, anthropologist and consciousness researcher Marilyn Schlitz, PhD, will be joined by IONS scientist Garrett Yount, PhD, for a conversation about why reports of psi experiences have stirred both interest and unease. Through personal accounts and historical context, they will explore how figures like Frederick Myers and Charles Tart work to bring a deeper understanding of these phenomena. So that is coming up October 24th and is free online, but you do need to go and register for that. Keeping with the parapsychological or survival of consciousness after death theme over at Washingtonian.com, what happens after we die? These UVA researchers are investigating it. When our bodies perish, can our consciousness persist? At the University of Virginia, researchers are searching for answers one near-death experience at a time. This article written by Joan Neeson, and this was published last month over at Washingtonian.com. It begins by saying at the eastern edge of downtown Charlottesville, past the red brick pedestrians mall with its bookstores and fudge shops and busking guitarists, beyond the incongruously modern amphitheater, just as the road begins to slope downhill toward the train tracks, and then out toward Monticello, sits an utterly nondescript condo building. I was there looking for the site of some highly unusual research conducted within the University of Virginia's medical school. It's mind-bending, norm-challenging work that explores the metaphysical, which is why I'd expected something a little more mystical. A spiral staircase, an owl, a crystal ball, the divination tower at Hogwarts, certainly not a mid-rise straight out of Anywhere USA. Only there it was, visible through the glass front door, a placard in the lobby reading Division of Perceptual Studies. Yeah, so there is a link to that site here, which I had not checked yet. And that's what it looks like. The University of Virginia's School of Medicine Division of Perceptual Studies. Well, yes, you can check out that article over at Washingtonian.com. And have this other one that's related from studyfinds.org. What happens after near-death experiences? Study reveals a dark aftermath from seeing the light. Now, just as a synopsis, and this is, I believe, about that very research at University of Virginia, it's basically suggesting what I think happens with a lot of anomalous experiences that challenge our notions about the nature of reality, that the person often feels ridiculed or is just simply afraid to open up about those experiences, or they come back from their experience, whether it's a near-death experience, a UFO close encounter, or an alien abduction, a sighting or encounter with an unknown creature, a cryptid or some sort, or just some kind of paranormal synchronicity. They often feel disconnected from the world. And this article gets at that. And I'll just in a nutshell from the article, near-death experiences can feel like touching eternity, but coming back often breaks earthly bonds. 1 in 5 experiencers report losing friends, family, closeness, or even marriages after their return. Validation, not therapy alone, makes the biggest difference in recovery and in reintegration. Doctors still get it wrong. Most lack training to support people shaken by what they saw on the other side. For many, it takes years to merge two worlds, the peace they glimpsed and the life they return to. And this gets at something I know a lot of people are really finally starting to address, which is the need for investigators to treat the investigated with respect and with an eye towards helping them come to terms with what they've experienced and not necessarily just treat them as something that they can then sensationally laud as my latest evidence that I got. It can be a hard edge to walk, but it really just comes down to being good humans to each other. So not that hard to apprehend the need for that. One of my favorite YouTubers, Ben Jordan, has a new, he's got several new videos. This one, The Silent Sound That Causes Dread. And this is yet another deep dive, very technical. It's not for everybody, but into the world of infrasound and its connections, apparently, probably, definitely, to the paranormal. But it also touches back on something that is how I first came to know about Ben Jordan in the first place. A year or two ago, however long ago it was, he did really one of the best short documentaries on the mystery hum phenomena. And towards the end of this video, he says this really goes back into that and makes him want to continue investigating that. But definitely encourage folks to check out The Silent Sound That Causes Dread by Ben Jordan over on YouTube. And of course, he has a Patreon where you can support his efforts in his research. He's also a musician that you might like some of his electronic music. Over at terminalbelief.substack.com, trauma, telepathy, and the doctor who shot energy beams from his eyes. I knew exactly who they were talking about when I saw that headline. A professional organization for conspiracy therapy. This is by Joseph L. Flatley. And it is behind a paywall, and so but you can at least get a taste of it. And it starts by talking about the person pictured here in this classic, interesting picture of Colin Ross wearing weird goggles, with one eye covered up with tinfoil. The article begins. I met Dr. Colin A. Ross in the gilded lobby of the Palmer House Hilton in Chicago during the 2018 annual conference of the International Society for the Study of Trauma and Dissociation. The hotel's ornate ceiling mural depicting Greek mythology provided a veneer of respectability for what might otherwise register as a convention for people who believe the CIA has been programming Manchurian candidates. Ross was easy to spot from the photos and videos on the internet. A former ISS TV president, he carried himself with the casual authority of someone accustomed to academic deference. We found a private room away from the conference floor, and for an hour he explained his theories about dissociative identity disorder, government mind control programs, and their clinical intersection. He discussed patients he believes were victims of Project Monarch and agents sent by shadowy agencies to test whether he could deprogram them. He acknowledged this was, quote, all just conjecture, unquote, but the qualifier did little to diminish his evident conviction. Yes, he is a complex figure who many have given up on trying to believe. He seemed to be one of the few academics willing to investigate this idea of mind control programmed people from CIA type, MK Ultra type projects and sub-projects. The fact that this article mentions that he believes in Project Monarch is a little concerning, and that's a bit much to go into, but suffice to say, yeah, the world of MK Ultra and the people who believe in it, and it is a real program, but what I mean is in the people who believe the wildest aspects and speculations about it, as well as the people who legitimately feel that they have been the victims of it, it can get very murky and disturbing. Moving right along, speaking of murky, disturbing, and strange, a 47-year-old disappearance finally solved. The story of Stephen Kubacki. I don't know how knowledgeable y'all are, anybody out there might be, about the story of Stephen Kubacki. I only recently was made aware of this. This young man, very intelligent, goes away to college and disappears seemingly out on the ice, spawning all kinds of speculation about time warps, UFOs, abductions, that sort of thing. He then turned up like a year later or sometime later, claimed amnesia, and it's only, I think, in the last few years that he has written his memoirs that go into what actually happened. And that memoir is called The Disappearance, Conspiracy, Revolution, Revelation, The Extraordinary Disappearance of Stephen Kubacki After 45 Years of Silence. Yeah, so there's a interview with one of the researchers, and this is the thumbnail for that. But basically, it's wild, and I bet the book is even more wild. I have not read it, but I'm very intrigued. But basically, he claims to be a revolutionary who is of something I really had never heard of before, which is nexialism, or a nexialist. That's Nexialism or T. And apparently this was a word created by the writer of a 1950 science fiction novel that my mom gave me as a child, called The Voyage of the Space Beagle. And if I can summarize what nexialism means. Yeah, so the author was named Van Vogt, V-O-G-T. The NRF, so I don't know, it's a really crazy story. Basically, this guy says that he was part of a group of co-conspirators who were interested in revolution in terms of being change agents in the world. He describes their group as the NRF, the Nexialist Revolutionary Front. And the word nexialist does not refer to any real-world political ideology. It was a fictional term that was coined by science fiction author A.E. Van Vogt in his 1950 novel, The Voyage of the Space Beagle. In the book, a nexialist is a person trained in applied holism, or integrated science and thought, who can find the nexus between disparate pieces of information to solve problems. It's a great idea. But anyway, there's a very interesting video interview you can watch. It doesn't give away, of course, all that's in the book, but I found it fascinating. It piqued my interest. I definitely want to find out more about what revolutionary acts this guy believes he and his co-conspirators were involved in. All right, that's probably going to be it. There were a ton of other news articles, whether they be paranormal, parapsychological, consciousness, health, some more conspiracy. Oh, there's a ton of great frontier archaeology, like the Easter Island statues actually walked, quote unquote, and physics backs it up. So it looks like they would wobble these stones on land. Meanwhile, strange mystery lingering behind the out of Africa theory. That one's from dailygrail.com, from the debrief.org. These large engravings are not just rock art. Mysterious 12,000-year-old pictographs uncovered in the Arabian desert. And over at archaeonews.net, historic discovery in Kara Hentepe, the first T-shaped pillar with a human face unearthed. And this one over at zmescience.com. This ancient messy Egyptian statue rewrites the rules of art history, and other links over there. Ton of other great links. Again, they'll be in the show notes for this episode. And one last cryptozoology thing. Last episode we were talking about how Jane Goodall was a believer in Bigfoot. Well, here we have a very brief clip featuring her talking about this several years ago. It's not actually the earliest clip where she talks about her willingness to believe in this, and it's different than the one I first heard about. I mentioned last episode, it was back in 2002 when I was at the Texas Bigfoot Conference in Jefferson, Texas, put on by Craig Woolheater, where members of the audience were talking about the fact that Jane Goodall, primatologist, had expressed belief in the reports of a North American hominid. And here is a quick clip of her briefly touching on that.
I climbed into the hills. This was where I was meant to be.
I want to talk to you about something that some would say is fictional, but you would say, hold up, we don't know for certain, and that's Bigfoot.
Everybody talks to me about... I'm romantic. I would like Bigfoot to exist. I've met people who swear they've seen Bigfoot. And I think the interesting thing is every single continent, there is an equivalent of Bigfoot or Sasquatch. There's the Yeti, there's the Yari in Australia, there's the Chinese wild man, and on and on and on. And, I've had stories from people who, you have to believe them. So there's something, I don't know what it is. I'm always open-minded.
All right. That's going to do it for tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and consider joining our Patreon. You can join for free or donating a small amount. Everything helps. We are still trying to find a a physical location again. We've been searching for 4 years now, and it's hard to find. That is the true anomaly in Austin, Texas, is affordable rent. So thank you so much. Good night.